Welcome to Multiple Choice Question 13 of the 2010 Mathematical Methods Exam 2. In this video, we will be looking at the solution for this question. A reminder that this video is in no way endorsed by VCAA. And before we get to the problem, I'd just like to point out that the use of a CAS calculator is not going to be appropriate for this style of question. So for question 13, we have a continuous random variable x with a normal distribution with a mean of 20 and a standard deviation of 6. We're also going to consider a continuous random variable z that has a standard normal distribution. So that has a mean of 0 and a standard deviation of 1. The question is that the probability that z is between -2 and 1 is equal to one of the following involving the random variable x. So as you'll see from the examiner's report in a moment, this was a challenging question on the exam. So to answer a problem like this, whenever you have two normal distributions, often labelled x and z, is I would recommend drawing two bell-shaped curves directly on top of each other with a similar shape. So here's the two bell-shaped curves that we'll work with. And the bottom one, which I'm going to do in green, is going to be z. So we know that z is distributed normally with a mean of 0 and a standard deviation of 1, so a variance of 1 squared. That means that this is 0, this would be 1, 2, and 3. We can see the little marks along the bottom that I've placed on there. And this is going to be -1, -2, and -3. So each one of those represents a further standard deviation away from the mean of 0. For the question, we're asked about the probability that z is between -2 and 1. So that probability is an area on this curve that is between those two lines that I just drew on. So this is the region that corresponds to the probability that z is between -2 and 1. And what we now want to do is find a region or an area under the blue bell-shaped curve, which is going to represent x, that has the same area or the same probability. So for our second bell-shaped curve up the top in blue, this is going to be x, which is normally distributed with a mean this time of 20 and a standard deviation of 6, or a variance of 6 squared as we would write it in that notation. Next up, we could label just quickly that this is the mean of 20, so this would be 26, 32, and 38, so that's going one standard deviation up each time, and then going down the other way we'd have 14, 8, and 2. So the essence of this problem is that we've got an area that is two standard deviations in one direction and one standard deviation in the other direction away from the mean. So looking through our options, we can see B goes from 14 to 32. And if I just draw onto the diagram that region, starting at 14 and going up to 32, you can see that this region or this area that I'm shading in, which is the probability that x is between 14 and 32, it has the same area by arguments of symmetry as the one that we shaded on the standard normal distribution down there in green. So B is the correct answer for this question. And if you did try any of the other options, you'd find that those regions, those areas, are not equal to the one that we're after. So that makes B the only correct answer for this problem. And quickly from the examiner's report, we can see that just over 50% of students got that question correct, with lots of students failing to identify the correct probability statements that were equal on that previous slide.